Welcome, everybody. On behalf of Holocaust Museum LA, my name is Michael Morgenstern, and I'm an educator at the museum. And this afternoon, you have the honor and privilege of listening to Gabriella Karin, a Holocaust survivor, who will share her story with you. And afterwards, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. Before we begin, I'd like to share a quick history of our museum. Our museum was founded in the early 1960s by a group of Holocaust survivors who wanted to make sure the world would always remember and learn from this tragic history. In the early 1960s, many survivors were not yet willing to relive their trauma, largely because the public was by and large not yet ready to listen to it. But thanks to the courage and foresight of this group of survivors, we have what became the first and oldest Holocaust museum in the United States, always with a mission to commemorate, educate, and inspire future generations. We can't do the work that we do today without our survivor community, who still on a regular basis shares their stories with groups to make sure that the future generations will always remember and learn. Gabriella, thank you so much for joining us today. Gabriella has been active with our museum for several years, sharing her story on such a regular basis, participating in our educational programs, and we're so honored to have you join us today to share your story. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, welcome everybody, and you may begin.
Hi, everybody. I was just a young girl when the World War II started. I was 8 years old. And before the war, we lived in a peaceful, democratic country, very similar than we are living here today. And in our wildest dreams, we could not have imagined what will happen, but it did. I want to introduce you to the Holocaust. As you know, 6 million Jewish people were murdered in the Holocaust, but alongside also 5 million non-Jews, like homosexuals, handicapped, gypsies, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Christians who were politically against the Hitler regime. So altogether, 11 million people were murdered, and the biggest murders were going between 1941 and 1945, 4 years. That means daily 7,500 people were murdered every day. What was the biggest tragedy? What happened here on our soil in United States? The September 11. About 3,000 people were killed. And it was a terrible thing. But imagine 7,500 people for 4 years every day. I'm a sculptor. I express my feelings in clay. I want to show you my sculpture about the 11 million people who lost their lives through the Hitler regime. On the columns, I have the Jewish people. The last minute before their death. And in between the columns, I have the handicapped, the courageous resistors, Christians who politically were against Hitler regime, Jehovah's Witnesses, gypsies, and homosexuals. 11 billion people. I'm from Slovakia. It was Czechoslovakia when I was born. In the Slovak, they split. Germany occupied the Czech part, became protectorate, protected by German occupied. And Slovakia became an independent country and collaborated with Germans. In Slovakia, 90,000 Jewish people lived. In 1942 was the biggest deportation in Slovakia. 60,000 people were deported. From 60,000 people, 230 people returned. Statistically, it means from 1,000 people, 4 people survived. What a numbers, worse numbers in Europe. That's me, about 10, 11-year-old. As you see, I didn't smile. Nobody could make me smile. Hard times of the Holocaust. This is my parents' store. My dad is in the middle. On the right, my mom with me. That's my 10-year-old birthday party. I am on far right. And these are my friends. I'm the only one who survived. To explain what I mean under the sculpture. My grandmother lived with us. My mom worked within the store, and she was with me. I loved her dearly. In 1942, when the deportation started, also the bombing of our allies was going on. So a lot of non-Jewish people left the big town because this is where they concentrate to bomb. There was a family, the Blanars, who moved like 60 miles in a small village, 60 miles away from Bratislava, and took my grandmother with them, pretending she is their mother. So they had it in their heart to protect her. My grandmother lived like 60 miles away. I had vacation. I went to see her. It was dangerous to go by train. They could have caught me. I was there for a while and I got sick. My parents wanted me to come back to Bratislava. My uncle volunteered with the bike to bike 60 miles with and pick me up. I was on the back of the bike and he biked back 60 miles again. And then we arrived to Bratislava, that was the capital of Slovakia. It's also today. Big city. It was full with people. We couldn't cross. The traffic wasn't going. Just people everywhere, police, soldiers, Germans in uniform. And as we were going, suddenly a German grabbed me. I got so scared. And my uncle didn't wait a second, grabbed my shoulders, pulled me up of his arms, and I quickly bended down, and between the legs of the people, I managed to disappear in the crowd. When I came out, I had no idea where I am. Bratislava is a big city. But somehow, slowly, I found my way home. This is my family. I use a falling leaf from a tree that's falling down. Because a leaf that is falling down from a tree is not alive anymore. And I wrote the names of my family members, 75 of them who perished in Holocaust. That's my mom. And this gentleman was her contact to resistance. My mother joined the resistance. My parents' store was located next to the police station. And because of the location, they knew every policeman. One of the policemen gave my mother the list that was issued every day with Jewish people, names and addresses where they will be picked up. My mother gave it to Jonas Eckstein, and she kept also names. She took me with her many, many times when we went to caution people that tonight at this address, they will come and take you away. Go somewhere, hide somewhere, do something. I will never forget until I live. Then we went to my mother's cousin. She was on the list. So was her husband, her old mother, and their 4-year-old little boy, my second cousin. And then we told them, for sure, tonight they will come and take you away at this address. Go somewhere, do something. They started to cry, and they told us, we have nowhere to go. We already went from one place to another. Hopefully, we will work and survive. We never saw them again. Next day, my mother went to the railroad station where all the cattle carts were filled up with the Jewish people that they gathered over the night. My mother knew the commander, a good friend of my parents. Somebody's in my door. It's okay. And he begged me, give me the little boy. But if he's 4-year-old, he cannot work. What do you need him for? And he started to cry. My mother begged him. And he looked at her and he said, if you don't disappear right now, I will put you in the wagons too. She left, but she do. This is the police station next to my father's store. You see the green start of another building? On the other end of this building was my father's deli store. This is the biggest police headquarters in Bratislava. I was taken by USC Shoah Foundation to Slovakia. They took me everywhere where I was. I was in the convent. The first year I was in the boarding school. The nuns were nice to me, but I was so worried what's happening with my parents, with my grandma. I cried myself to sleep every night. When I went there, this crew of 7 from Shoah Foundation in Los Angeles to close this thing. Okay. So this is the archivist. She showed me 1,000 pictures. Then she said, find yourself. I couldn't find myself. I probably didn't want to be on the pictures. I tried to hide. I didn't want the kids take the picture home and somebody will recognize me. So I didn't find myself. But as I was looking, I found my teacher. And I said, this is Sister Angelica. This sister, this nun, had no idea. So she went to her notes and she says, you are right. This is Sister Angelica. Can I have a picture? Sure, she gave it to me. This is Sister Angelica. I made a sculpture about the nuns hiding 3 Jewish girls, 2 sisters and me. My mother was so well informed. In 1944, 2 years after the biggest deportation in Slovakia, Germany occupied Slovakia. My mother knew about it, that it will be coming. Actually, she was sent to Hungary to warn the authorities in Hungary, Jewish authorities, that Germany will occupy Hungary. They laughed in her face. They couldn't believe it. She was so upset when she came back. 3 days later, Hungary was occupied. She knew later on that Slovakia will occupy too, and we went in complete hiding. The house on the right, a 5-story building, had apartments, stores. On 3rd floor lived somebody we knew named Karol Blanar, who had it in his heart to hide 8 people. It was my parents, my aunt, 2 uncles, and 2 friends of my parents. 8 people. And we were there for 9 months. And this building was across the street of the Slovak Gestapo Linková Garda. He took the chance to risk his life. I saw many things. I saw the Germans or Slovaks in uniform marching in front of the house. Also, I saw the 2 girls who were with me in the convent, and the convent was just 5 minutes walking from this place, running on the street, being caught in front of my eyes and pulled into the headquarters. No question in my mind, I would have been with them if my mother wouldn't have taken me out from the convent. I never saw them again. This is Karol Blanar. 25-year young lawyer. He received from Yad Vashem, that's the largest Holocaust museum in the world, and gives the award to non-Jewish people who help Jewish people to survive without any money exchange. He got also, his parents received the certificate of honor as the righteous person among their nations. After war, Karol Blanar wrote a couple of articles against communism, and when the communists took over, he had to flee the country. We got a word, he made it over the border, but then we lost touch. Meantime, I became an adult, and I wanted to thank him, not from my parents, not from the friends, not from the relatives, me. I was a child when it happened, and I wanted to thank him as an adult. And I was looking for him, but I could not find him. Years passed, and one day I got my first computer. So I Googled him. It didn't come up. Then I remember he had a younger brother, Vincent Blanar. So I put his name in, and he came up. Vincent Blanar, a university professor, wrote about 25 books. His phone number was there, his address. I went to the phone. I did not look if it's midnight there or what. I was so excited. And he picked up the phone. And I tried to introduce myself. And he said, I remember you. Oh, good. Just tell me, where is Karol? And Karol got married, lived in United States, in Dublin, Ohio, but he died in 1980. Years and years before. I missed the opportunity. So I asked Vincent, where is he buried? The only thing I can do for him is to visit his grave. But he had no idea. This time, the communist occupied countries did not allow any contact with families in the free world. So he did not know. So he lived in Dublin, Ohio. I found all the cemetery around Dublin, Ohio, and I called them, and I could not find him there. One day, here in Holocaust Museum, LA, I met a gentleman who came to listen to my speech. And he came to me and said, I am very good finding people like that. Maybe if you give me some data that you know, I will try. And he found him the next day in Columbus, Ohio, in an unmarked grave. And I heard it. I couldn't believe my eyes. I called the cemetery and I asked them, could you please look up what happened 35 years ago? And they did. And they told me nobody was there Only the priest when they buried him. Nobody paid. That's it. I said, no, that's not it. I'm ordering a mark right now, and I want to have written on it, righteous person among the nations. And when they were putting the marker in the earth, I went there with my grandson. And if you want to hear my goodbye speech to Karol Blanar, go on my website, GabriellaKarin.com, and you can find it there and listen to it. Hidden in the shadow of death. You see the German boots marching in front of the house. These are the people who were with me. My mother and my father, and I was the only child to my parents. My aunt, 2 uncles, and 2 friends of my parents. And Karol Blanar on this other side, bringing us food. He couldn't bring too much. Everybody was watched. We were hungry all the time. And I am there in the middle. I was 13 at this time. And if you can imagine yourself, 14 hours a day, sitting on a chair, not be able to move around, not be able to speak. And the only thing I could do, Karol Blanar brought me books to read. And he couldn't bring me books for a young girl. He brought me history books. And I was reading whatever I got into my hands. And guess what? After liberation, I made a test and I jumped a grade. I learned so much with reading, and I want to tell you something. Everything can be taken away from you, even the clothes you wear, but nobody can take away from you what you have in your head. Put good stuff in it, it's yours until you leave. Our last possession. First, they took away our citizenship. And then they took away our jobs, and then our apartments. And then they took people to the camp. And they arrived by the train. And they stepped down from the train. And the first thing what they took away was the last thing from home, the small luggage. 12 windows to the unforgettable past. The first window shows the swastika coming, but the world was silent. November 9, 1938, Kristallnacht. All over Germany and Austria, they were burning Jewish synagogues. Hundreds of them burned to ground. Thousands put on fire. They broke into Jewish store windows, throwing out religious objects on the street and burning. And they started to take Jewish men to camp. This was the beginning of Holocaust, 9 months before the World War II started. And there was a window of opportunity to let children out from age 2 to age 17. But the world did not open their gates to let them in. The only place was England, and they saved 10,000 children. And I was going from museum to museum, and there was not a word about it. And it bothered me. And I made a sculpture. It's 15 feet in the windows of these childlike trains. I had the real photographs of the children who were in the kinder transport. I have about 600 pictures. And when I started to correspond with people. I didn't have time to work on my sculpture. And Michelle called, who I didn't know before, came to me and asked me. She was at the time a docent. Later she became the chair board at the Holocaust Museum LA. And she asked me if she can help me. And I was so overwhelmed. I said, yes. She took over all the correspondence. And then I was finished with the sculpture and she got enough photographs. We looked at each other. We had so much material. Let's put it in a book. And it's an educational book. On the left, that's Michelle's mom. She was on the kindergarten. And this is the book. Michelle is the author. Memories that won't go away. A tribute to the children of the kinder transport. I am the illustrator. And it's an educational book about this part of the Holocaust. It's available in the museum, also on my website. Bunk beds. If you can imagine a twin-size bed, 4 to 5 people sleeping in it. One turns, everybody had to turn around. Starving prisoner. Death march. When people in the camps heard the shooting of the Allies, and they thought in a day or two we will get free, the Germans opened the gate and started to march people to another camp. It was middle of January, freezing cold European winter. People didn't have proper shoes, proper clothes, no food, no water. More than half of the people died just few months before end of the war. Forced labor, heavy physical work. Silent scream. We couldn't rebel. We couldn't do anything. Nobody helped us. A child is leaving mother hand, cannot reach it. Gate of Auschwitz. Written on it, Arbeit macht frei. The work makes you free. What an irony behind these gates. I'm going every year, not in this pandemic. I was already 8 times on the March of the Living with the Los Angeles delegation. We have about 220 students, high school seniors, and we march together from this gate to the other end of Auschwitz, Birkenau, where the gas chambers are. And we march together in a complete silence. It's awesome. I don't have words to express it. And this is the other side, Birkenau, where the gas chambers are. And this, it's a mountain of Jewish stars, mountain of dead people. And from all this horror came out State of Israel. And I have there a cactus. You know why a cactus? Because everybody who is born in Israel, it's called like the fruit of the cactus, sabra. It's after war. The train started to come home with survivors. I was going with my family every day to the railroad station, looking for a familiar face, not be able to recognize people. People looked like skeletons. And I was standing there, a young girl. I was 14 at this time. And I was thinking in myself, how can I live a normal life after what I went through, what I see here today? Is it possible? And I decided in myself, Hitler did not get my body, and he will not get my soul. I will smile, and I will be happy, and I am. This is the largest sculpture I ever made. It's 9 feet tall. The leaves are falling. The whole thing is rotating. I call it shimmering leaves, perished families. I sold it to University Laverne. They built the interface building, and it's standing there in the lobby. And this sculpture, this is the past, the Holocaust. And this is the present, stop the hate. And this is the future, children holding hands around the globe, hoping for better days, different color eyes, different color hair. Let's hope it will be a better future for all of us. And this is for the global pandemic. As you see, the whole world is wearing the mask. What does it mean? It means freedom, equality. We are all in it, no exceptions. I use the butterfly. As you see, I wear always a butterfly. Because from the ugly cocoon comes a beautiful butterfly. It's hope for all of us. And these are the butterflies that are available in the museum, also on my website. When the pandemic started, I knew will be cooped up for months in my home by myself. I started to write a book about my life. I've worked like crazy, 12 hours a day, no stop. And I finished the book in 2 months. On my 90th birthday, actually, I was speaking at this museum, holding my first book in my hands. I want to leave you with Albert Einstein's quote. The world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. Don't be a bystander. Speak up. Speak up if you hear or see injustice. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, Gabriella. If anybody has any questions, those watching on Zoom can use the Q&A box, and those watching on Facebook can use the comments section, and we'll answer as many questions as possible. First question is, one of our viewers says, your sculptures are incredible. What a talent you have. Are any of your sculptures in museums, and are any for sale?
Yes, to both questions. I have the butterfly that you saw. It's actually in Holocaust Museum, LA, in the library. And I have in other museums things. And I have the website, so people can contact me if they are interested to buy. Right now, I finished a book about Holocaust. Actually, I have 50 Holocaust-related sculptures. It is the book. It just came out. You can buy it in the museum. The name is The Agony of the Holocaust. And this is, can you see it?
We can see it, yes. The Agony of the Holocaust. Thank you. Can you please share with us when you started doing art and what prompted this?
Actually, I was a fashion designer all my life. I retired when I was 62. 3 weeks later, I woke up with a decision. I'm going back to school. I want to do sculptures in clay. I never had clay in my hands. And this is when I started. I didn't have a good teacher. He was actually discouraging me. You want something impossible, but this is what I want. And each time he passed around, again something impossible. I stick with him for a year. Then I went to Israel. I have a friend, he was a sculptor, And I brought him a couple of pictures that I did. And I told him what the teacher is telling me. Say, tell me, should I stop doing it or should I try more? And he looked at me and he said, you know, I think you should stay home and work it out yourself. Don't let anybody influence you. And I listened.
Thank you so much. Can you please clarify how long were you in hiding?
9 months. Complete hiding, yes. That means no sun, no fresh air.
And how old were you when you went into hiding?
I was 13.
Thank you. Did you know, after the war, did you know any other families who survived in a similar way by hiding?
Yes. Later in years, I met some people who told me we were in hiding. But I didn't know them at this time. We didn't know each other.
Have any other relatives who survived aside from your parents?
Yes. My uncles, my uncle from my mother's side, and he had 3 kids, and he lived in Hungary. And when my mother went to caution the authorities, Jewish authorities, she stopped at his place. He lived just behind the border of Slovakia. And she told him that Germany will come occupy. You better, this time it was quieter in Slovakia. Come over to Slovakia. Well, he didn't right away, but when they came to pick up, and these were his schoolmates, the sheriff, who came to pick him up, and he had 3 little boys. And he said, well, let me dress them up. I said, okay, I will come to the station. You know, they were schoolmates, they knew each other. And he didn't dress them up. He grabbed the 2 boys and the third, the little one, in his arms, and they ran through the border. They just lived by the border. They ran through border, they made it, they came to us. I remember we made false school report cards for them because they spoke Hungarian, not Slovak. Little Slovak because their mother was Slovak, but and also father, you know, they knew a little bit, but we did give them bad grades. I remember I was always very skillful with any work. I made the stamps. I carved them in rubber, so the stamps for the school reports. And they went to live in a small village. And one day the boys, the little one wasn't circumcised, but the 2 big ones were. But the baby wasn't. And the boys went to the river and they undressed and they went swimming with the other kids and they started to scream at them. These are Jews, man. These kids are Jewish. And when they came home, they were telling their mom, and mom grabbed the little one, undressed him. He wasn't circumcised. And grabbed the two boys and they ran through the village and she was screaming, "Come and look, this is a Jewish kid." And she said, "You want to see the other one?" And the boy said, "No, no, no, you know." Anyhow, it passed because they saw the little one and he wasn't circumcised. So they survived.
Thank you very much for sharing. I'm going to just take the screen down so that we can see you clearer. Can you please share with us how you started a family?
How did I start a family? Well, that wasn't easy. I had problems. I got married when I was 17. And I couldn't get pregnant. It took 10 years. And actually it's written up in medical books. It's a miracle child, my son. Not a baby anymore, it's a big boy. But he's okay. But I couldn't get pregnant again. But I'm lucky I have him.
At what point did you share your story with your son and grandchildren?
Oh, absolutely. About the Holocaust? Yes, I did. So did my husband. And the grandchildren, you won't believe. My husband didn't want to talk about it. It was very hard on him. But the grandchildren put it out of him. They don't live in the same town. So when they came visit, we slept in the same house. We were guests there. And in the evening, when they went to bed, they brought some books to read. No, 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 put it away, put it away. We want to talk to you. The kids, little kids. So what you want to talk? We want to know what did you do when you were 10? Or what you did when you were 14? Each time something different. And we answered. So we told them about Holocaust.
Thank you for sharing. Just to clarify, when was the last time that you saw Karol Blanar?
After war, I think it was in 46 or 47. You can look it up, whenever the communists won the election. I think it was '47, B-48 maybe, not sure.
And it was after that point then that you lost contact with him and never were able to speak to him again. Thank you. And when did you move to the United States?
In 1960. I arrived on my birthday.
How did this experience shape your view of people and of your future?
Well, when I came out of Holocaust, and I realized, I heard what happened, it made me kind of, I want to fight for justice. I joined some youth groups. I was full with energy to change the world. And I still am working on it. It's a big process. Hopefully I can do something. I'm working and trying.
Thank you. And I can attest to the fact that you've been speaking and sharing this story on such a regular basis, particularly with students or future generations. So we know you definitely make a big impact on our world. So we thank you so much. I have a couple more questions. One question is, and a similar one, how have you kept your heart free of hatred after everything that happened to you and your family?
I still feel that basically people have something good in them. Every mother who will have a child or has a child wants a better future for the child, a peaceful future. They don't want wars. They want the child to grow up and be happy. And I am convinced that this is everywhere. It doesn't matter the color of your skin or color of eyes, hair. Everybody wants the same thing. And I want to leave you with saying what I am usually telling people, that it doesn't matter what color eyes you have, what color skin you have, what color hair you have. We are all the same people, and we don't have to love everybody, but we have to respect every person in this earth. We all have the right to be here.
You so much for that concluding message. And we just have one more question. One of our viewers would like to know, when is your birthday?
November 17, 1930.
Thank you. Gabriella, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, not just today, but all the times over the years that you have shared the story on such a regular basis. And as I mentioned, you speak so frequently to students, our future generations, and the message that you gave us now was a message that you have given to so many students over the years. And we know that you make such a positive impact on our future by sharing this message. And so one of our viewers commented and said, Gabriella, you are a true inspiration. I see such a joy for life in your smile. Thank you so much again for everything that you do for us and for our community. And thank you again to our audience for tuning in. And we invite you to listen next week for our weekly Survivor Talk. So we will have Ava Nathanson sharing her story on next week. Thank you so much, everybody. And Gabriella, thank you. We wish you well and a good week ahead.
Thank you.